is a great day to be talking water, wastewater, whether it's here or you're there or the first time tuning in or not your first time, or perhaps you listen every day. We here at the Water Online Show want to thank you for spending your time here with us. This is the Water Online Show powered by Water Online, the leading online destination for the water and wastewater market. I am your host, as always, Travis Kennedy, and joining me as usual is my co-host, chief editor, and all-around great guy, water guru, the chief editor of Water Online, Mr. Kevin Westerling. Kev, big show today.
Yes, sir.
We have a very important guest, and I really am excited to go ahead and get started.
Too easy.
Well, I'm going to get to that. I want to keep the crowd in suspense just for a little while longer. In the past, Kev, we've talked a lot about water quality. That could be in the form of standards, or that could be on the topic of PFAS or whatever that's concerning our audience, our listening audience, and our viewers out there.
Every day, all the time, we talk about it.
Yeah, it seems like it, right? I mean, it is the most important thing that I think we deal with as an industry professional. So, I mean, there's millions of people that take the safety of their food or water or consumer products for granted. Why do you think that is? Why do you think they take it for granted?
Probably because and you didn't prep me with these questions.
I didn't. No, I have you on the spot.
They trust our institutions to do right by them.
Yep. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm going to actually break it down into just 3 letters. The reason why they take it for granted, NSF. Their certifications ensure that the products that are put out there, including our water sources, meet strict public health standards. And it is my pleasure to unveil our guest for today on the Water Online Show, brought to you by Water Online. Joining us on the Water Online audio video hotline is none other than Kyle Postmus with NSF, the most highly recognized organization that specializes in keeping our water and products safe. Kyle, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Travis. Thanks, Kevin. It's a pleasure to be here.
I think the best place to get started here would be to get a little bit more familiar with who you are and what you do. So can you just tell us a little bit about how you work with NSF and some of the things that you're working on now and have in the past year or so?
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm the Global Senior Manager of the Drinking Water Treatment Unit Certification Program, which is a mouthful to say. I manage the certification of water filters that are used in homes and in commercial settings. So the kinds of things like a refrigerator water filter, and under the sink RO system, UV systems, water softeners, all of those fall under kind of my program.
And all this stuff flow in through public waters, right? So we're talking about a faucet coming through a refrigerator. So all of that does come through municipal supplied sources. But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, Kyle. I just wanted to...
No, it's a good point. So some of the other work I do is at the municipal levels, working on certifying some of the filters that are used at the municipal level, like ultrafiltration, nanofiltration membranes,
Heard of it?
RO systems, that sort of thing. But what NSF does really is, make sure that any product that comes into contact with water that's meant for drinking is going to be safe to use. And in some cases, we validate that it works as it is intended to.
Is there any better job, more important job than making sure that our source water is actually safe? What we're consuming is safe, the food, the water. I mean, can I think of a more important job?
No, I mean, that's what we talk about every day.
Right.
Our water treatment professionals are our heroes.
Yep.
And Kyle and NSF play a big part in that. So, I mean, that leads me, Kyle, to ask, we do have government regulations in place, obviously, with the EPA and whatnot. So that being said, why do we need NSF standards?
That is a great question. So I think about it in 2 fronts. One is preventative, and the other is kind of proactive. So the Safe Drinking Water Act, mandates that water coming out of a public water treatment facility meets certain quality, but then it has to go through a long distribution network to get to your house. It goes through pipes, it touches gaskets and valves and plumbing fixtures and faucets, as you mentioned. So anything that touches the water needs to be certified to the NSF ANSI Canada Standard 61 standard to make sure that that water is not picking up anything harmful along the way, and that it's still clean and drinkable when you get it. So that's sort of the preventive side of it. The more proactive side is using water filters. We do have pretty good water quality here. There are some cases where maybe not so much, whether that's a local U.S. issue or an international issue where they don't have access to clean drinking water. And the consumer wants to buy something that's going to help their water be a higher quality. So on the proactive side, we make sure these devices actually work as they claim to.
Very important to make sure they work. That's without a doubt, right? So yes, Kevin, I think you're right. I mean, our frontline workers in the water industry that are responsible for making sure that our water is safe for consumption are indeed heroes, right along the lines of those first responders and frontline workers that keep us safe every day. So I think that's important to note here, that the work that you're doing, Kyle, cannot be understated. So we certainly do appreciate it. One of the things that we've been hearing about and that Kevin and I have been talking about on the Water Online show is none other than PFAS. Have you heard of it, Kyle? Are you familiar?
Yeah, once or twice. I think it's come up.
I mean, it's just more letters, right? So with that, I'm curious if you could let the audience know, like, how does an NSF certification then provide like an extra layer of protection when dealing with PFAS?
Yeah, so let me start by saying, yeah, absolutely. These devices are effective at reducing PFAS. So there's a lot of devices out there. They can make all sorts of wild claims. But in order to be certified by NSF or another accredited agency, we actually test it. We run PFAS through it. We make sure it comes out clean on the other side. And then we, post it on our public listing so that consumers can come and verify that that device works as it states. So yeah, PFAS is a big issue. It's evolving. It's very, very quickly compared to some of the other contaminants. So there are changes coming, but absolutely, if you want to kind of limit your personal exposure to PFAS, especially while public water supplies, they have until 2027, 2029 to get into compliance. In that interim, you can buy a certified water filter and it will absolutely limit your exposure.
So yeah, PFAS gets most of the attention, but we know that there are hundreds of other contaminants out there. What other ones, even maybe some that aren't even regulated, are concerning to the public?
It's a good question. Yeah, I think about 5 years ago, lead was the main concern. And then when PFAS came on the stage, it kind of flipped. But there's a lot of focus on things like microplastics and emerging contaminants like endocrine disruptors or pharmaceutical byproducts that, that aren't completely digested and make their way into the water supply. And even though they're there in trace amounts and they might not be hazardous, there's still a lot of public concern about them. So yeah, I think the main ones right now are microplastics, endocrine disruptors, pharmaceutical or disinfection byproducts, or even pesticides and things that end up in the water that you don't want there. And there's a lot of growing concern around.
And I also think it depends on where you live and where you are, what contaminants are going to be affecting your everyday life. I mean, I just read a bunch of stuff on microplastics over the past month and a half, and some of it seems somewhat regionalized, higher concentrations here, not so much there, which leads me to think that as a whole, there's water quality differs amongst different geographical regions. And I'm just kind of curious, is there an effort underway that will bring everybody sort of together and put all areas across the United States specifically on the same standards level?
Yeah, so the reigning standard or the regulatory requirement right now is that anything that touches water, and that must be certified to NSF ANSI Canada Standard 61. So there is sort of a level playing field in the U.S. And in Canada now. They adopted it, in the past couple of years. And that's just for the products that are used. There are definitely regional water quality issues that may not be addressed by those standards. But we are also a global company, so there are situations like in the EU right now. They're working towards harmonizing their water standards. So if you want to sell a product in Europe, you have to meet the French regulation, and you have to meet the Italian regulation, you have to meet the German. So they're harmonizing that under one standard. And I think the underlying important point is to start with products that are safe. There's a simple regulatory framework to confirm that they meet those requirements, and then broad acceptance of those requirements.
Real quick, just for clarification, are there different standards for public water, say in Great Britain versus France versus Germany? So are those standards different as it relates to source water, the stuff that comes out of faucets and whatnot, or is it all still under the same standard?
I'm not as familiar with their water quality standards, but their product standards are kind of all over the place. So yeah, different regions, different issues to address. So
makes sense.
So yeah, harmonizing those standards sounds good, but is there any benefit to actually consulting with it for um, like U.S. water managers and governments and treatment companies to actually consult with stakeholders from other countries? Is there any benefit to doing that?
Absolutely, I think so. There's technology being developed in China and Korea and some of the major players in the industry throughout Europe. And they're coming up with interesting solutions that could definitely apply and be helpful here in the U.S. And kind of conversely, there's a lot of things going on here in the U.S. that can help with water quality issues around the globe. And it's really important that everybody gets together and kind of understands the latest information and has access to it.
I mean, speaking of getting everybody together, this is an industry that is quickly becoming more about collaboration and cross-departmental collaboration, especially on the muni side. I'm sure it's the same way on the industrial side. It really hinges upon learning from others, right? So we learn more from others' knowledge and experience and perspective than we would solely on our own. And that's universal across any industry, but it's becoming mainstream here in water. So how can the water industry do a better job from that standpoint? Like what is left to improve upon from that viewpopoint?
Yeah, I love that this industry is like that.
I
Collaboration
know,
is
right?
absolutely key. It's
Becoming one big
incredibly
family,
important. Yeah,
right? One big happy family.
yeah. To me, it's all about engagement. I watched one of your recent shows about the next generation, especially. Like, we have to engage the next generation. They have to engage in the industry and
So
learn about what's going on, get involved in whatever. There's a lot of different ways to be involved in water quality, whether you're just a regulatory guy like me behind the scenes, or you're a frontline worker, or you're a manufacturer that has an amazing new product that you want to implement in the world. We just need to get together and understand each other and work to find solutions. There's going to be problems. There's going to be conflict, but if we all are focused on public health, we're going to get some interesting results.
without a doubt,
Yeah.
having public health being number one priority. As long as we are all centered there, I think everything else can fall into place as long as we're driven, and also including this youthful movement that we're seeing.
Yeah.
Like being able to get their perspective on how we can all sort of come together and address all of the needs that the market has and do it collectively and sort of be where the market is. All of that is important. So yeah, I think it's one of the most pressing issues that we're trying to solve now. I think as an industry, we're doing a pretty good job.
Pretty good. We can always do better.
Yeah.
Like I see every day, like there's like research institutes and colleges, and they're coming up with these innovations. And then you mentioned like around the world, there are different utilities trying new things and finding more efficient ways to do things. And we know those technologies are out there, but they're not always implemented, especially here in the US, which seems to be slow in the uptake of some of these things. So like you get a little here, you get a little there. How can we foster like more adoption of these new technologies amongst our utilities?
Yeah, it can be challenging. That's for sure. And there's some good reason for being hesitant and conservative. You don't want to implement something and find out 5 years later that
Doesn't work.
it's actually doing some harm.
That's bad.
Yeah.
Right. But the question is still
Public health number one, like you
right.
said.
Exactly.
But yeah, I'm going to go back to engagement. There's an interesting case where we're seeing a lot more post-disaster water quality issues. Right? And so the prevailing solution is to truck in a lot of bottled water. So we were approached to develop some standards around portable water systems that could be brought into those areas and implemented. And the regulatory framework is very gray. There's not a lot of clarity. The only way to get through that is to engage all the stakeholders, the water supply companies that know how to treat water, the product manufacturers that know how to make products to treat the water, and somebody that can come in and validate it and make sure that it's legitimate, it's safe, it's going to be effective, and can kind of give all of those stakeholders, the public, the regulators, some trust that it's been backed by an agency like NSF.
Getting access to clean water is everybody's human right. And hearing Kyle talk,
Need us to live.
right, exactly. It's a life source and a life science. So just hearing Kyle talk, it brought up some highlights from the movie Brave Blue World that Paul O'Callahan had put out. It really touched on some of those technologies that I think Kyle was sort of alluding to about being able to give access to water in terms of there's an emergency within that area. The old or previous go-to was just bringing a bunch of bottled water, which is fine to sustain for a given amount of time. But there's a lot of technologies out there now that can go into an area that's unfortunately suffered some kind of emergency and be able to produce nice clean water with NSF being able to back it to let everybody there know and give them some sense of security that, hey, this is okay to consume, this is okay to put in your body. And having NSF there to sort of give that assurance, you cannot understate the importance of that. So,
right. Especially with the uptick, we're seeing like more disasters, it seems, all the time.
Everywhere, even here in the States, it's everywhere. I mean, you know, whether it's a rainstorm that's coming down in the West Coast that they haven't seen before, to the breadth of what they have, and then the hurricanes that we're facing here in the Southeast. So it's just, I hear you. Making sure that everybody has access to safe, clean water and having that assurance on the back end that, hey, you know, I know that they say that this is safe, but if NSF is saying that it's good, then we're feeling pretty good about where we are.
Approval.
Exactly right. So
That's the hope, yeah.
Yeah, very important part of the market, which is, again, a life science, life source. So, Kyle, you know, on behalf of all of us here at Water Online and the Water Online Show, we want to thank you for the work that you do and the work that NSF does on a daily basis to fight this battle for us.
I appreciate that, Travis. Yeah, that's what we're here for. It's our number one mission, and it's great to be a part of this wonderful industry.
So how can somebody get in touch with you or NSF if they have any questions, if they want to learn more about how they can get involved or how they can utilize NSF to help the process along with wherever they might be in terms of water quality and providing safe water, you know, for their constituents and customers?
Yeah, the best place to start is nsf.org. There are a couple different ways you can submit questions or comments, and that will get routed to me if needed. So yeah, that's how you get started, and that we'll make contact and engage and figure out what we can do.
Excellent. Well, Kyle, thank you once again for joining us here on behalf of Kevin and myself and all of us here at Water Online and the Water Online Show. Thanks for joining us, and we cannot wait to have you back at a later date. I'd like to have some updates on the current projects that you'll be working on and where things stand with some of the topics we covered today. So once again, thank you for joining us, and for all of you out there, thank you for spending your time here with us, and we cannot wait to see you again next time. Till then, take care.